All right, let's talk about something that can cause a whole lot of stress for students and researchers: APA citation style. Today, we're going to demystify the whole thing and give you a really clear, straightforward guide to help you master the basics for your next paper. You know how it is. You've spent weeks, maybe months on your research. You've written thousands of words, and right when you think you're finally at the finish line, you remember the citations. It can seriously feel like you have to learn a whole new language, right? Well, if you feel that way, you are not alone. And I promise, by the end of this, you're going to feel way more confident. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover why APA is even a thing. Then we'll break down those in-text citations, move on to the all-important reference list, and we'll wrap up with a quick quiz so you can test what you've learned. Let's jump in. Okay, first things first. Why do we even have to bother with this specific style? Honestly, it all comes down to building credibility. You see, APA, which stands for the American Psychological Association, isn't just a bunch of random picky rules. It's a standardized system that does two really crucial things. First, it's all about giving credit where credit is due, to the researchers whose work you're building upon. And second, it gives your readers a clear map to go and find those original sources themselves. This is basically the heart of academic integrity. And the whole author date system, that really helps show how current the research is, which is super important in fields like the social sciences. Let's get into the real nuts and bolts: in-text citations. These are those little mentions of your sources that pop up right there in the middle of your paper. Think of them as the basic building blocks for everything else. Okay, so the first type we're going to talk about is called a narrative citation. The best way to think about this one is that you're weaving the author's name right into the story you're telling. Their name just becomes a natural part of your sentence, and you follow it up with the year in parentheses. So for example, you might write, Clove 2019 found that the findings were significant. See how that works? Clove is the subject of the sentence. It's a really smooth way to bring in your source, and it's perfect when you want to put the focus on a specific researcher's work. Now, the second main type is the parenthetical citation. With this one, the focus is more on the idea you're presenting, not necessarily the person who had it. You make your point, and then you just tuck the source info, the author and the year, inside parentheses right at the end of the sentence. For instance, the findings were significant, Clove 2019. In this case, your statement stands on its own, and that citation in the parentheses is just there as backup, as your proof. This is probably the most common way you'll see it done. Seeing them side by side really makes it click, doesn't it? On the left, the narrative style puts the author in the spotlight. On the right, the parenthetical style lets the idea itself take center stage. There's no right or wrong one to use. You just pick the one that fits the flow of your writing best. Okay, that's all well and good for when you're summarizing or paraphrasing. But what happens when you use someone's exact words? Well, the rule changes just a little bit. And this is a big one. Anytime you use a direct quote, word for word, you absolutely have to include the page number. It tells your reader exactly where to find that quote. So the citation gets one more piece: author, year, and page number, just like you see here. What if you've got two authors? Super simple. In a narrative citation, you just connect their names with the word and. But, and this is a classic gotcha detail, in a parenthetical citation, you have to use an ampersand, that little and symbol. It's a tiny difference, I know, but getting it right really shows you know what you're doing. All right, let's do a quick lightning round of some special cases. If you can't find a publication date, no sweat. Just use ND for no date. What if you're citing a source you found inside of another source? Use the as cited in format. And for those really long quotes, anything 40 words or more, you drop the quotation marks and just set the whole thing off as a separate indented paragraph. So, how does this all come together? Well, every single in-text citation you make is basically a little breadcrumb leading back to a full entry in your reference list at the end of your paper. This is where your reader gets all the nitty-gritty details to go find those sources for themselves. Now, the format for your reference list changes based on the type of source. And yeah, the details really matter here. For a book, you'll need the author, year, and title. For a journal article, it's a bit more detailed. You've got the author, year, the title of the article itself, and then the journal title and volume number are in italics, followed by the page numbers. The same kind of logic applies to things like websites. You'd include the author, date, page title, site name, and the URL. Just pay really close attention to all the little details, like punctuation and italics. This table is a great place to start. All right, you've seen the rules, you've seen the examples. Now it's time to put your new skills to the test with a little mini quiz. Don't worry, there's no pressure. It's just a good way to check your understanding. Okay, first one up. You're using a direct quote from a book by an author named Jasmine Denise. The book is from 2013, and the quote is on page 112. You need a parenthetical citation. How would that look? Take a second and think about it. And there you have it. Dennis 2013, page 112. You've got the author's last name, the year, and since it's a direct quote, you've got the page number. Perfect. Scenario number 2. This time you're paraphrasing, not quoting. The author is Peter Kahn, the book's from 2016, and you want to use his name right there in your sentence. That's the narrative style. What does that look like? You got it. Kahn's name is part of the sentence, so the year, 2016, just goes right in parentheses after his name. And because it's a paraphrase, no page number needed. Nice work. Okay, last one. You're paraphrasing an idea from a book with 2 authors, Samuel Smith and Melanie Colin. It was published in 2014, and you need the parenthetical citation. Remember that key detail for 2 authors inside the parentheses? That's the one, Smith and Colin, 2014. Since it's parenthetical, you connect their names with that ampersand. It's that little detail that really shows you've got this down. Great job. So here's the bottom line. APA isn't some big, mysterious code meant to confuse you. It's just a system, a logical way for us all to be part of the same academic conversation. You've got the basic toolkit now, so the only question left is, which part of your next paper are you going to tackle first?